Today's fourth Advent candle is for love. And some of you know that I have a great love for Mary, Jesus' mother. Some of you know that I was a religious brother in the Catholic Church. And the order of brothers I belong to is called the Marist Brothers. They're a group of men around the world who are devoted to Mary. And I just heard a story from a friend of mine who said when she was a little girl, she was invited to attend her friend's first Holy Communion. And she had never been in a Catholic church before. So when she was at her friend's communion, she was sitting there in the pew and she looked up in the front. And there was this huge statue of this beautiful woman, Mary. And the name of the church was Our Lady of Perpetual Help. The church was named for Mary. And my friend said that when she got home, her mother said to her, "How did you like the communion?" And she said, "Oh, Mom, I loved it. I want to become a Catholic." And her mom said, "Why?" And she said, "Because their God is a woman." Isn't that beautiful? And that's what Mary is for me. Maybe that's why I have such a devotion to Mary. She is the feminine face of God for me. She is that feminine energy, that creative energy, that nurturing energy that lives in all of us, whether we're male or female. And at Christmas, we are called to birth that energy and that light out into the world. That's what Richard Rohr said will save the world, as Mary birthed a Savior into the world. That's what we're called to do at Christmas. Now, this gospel story is only told once every 3 years in the Christian lectionary that we follow. And it's only told in Luke's gospel. And yet it's a story that most of us are familiar with. It's called the Annunciation, because the angel is announcing to Mary this good news. Now, there are many great works of art that depict the Annunciation. You'll see them hanging in museums. Our bulletin cover kind of gives us a glimpse of what most of those paintings look like. Mary's wearing a beautiful Renaissance gown, and it's this picturesque Tuscan setting, and she's got this big golden halo, and she's so meek and mild and compliant. And that's lovely, but I personally don't think that's really how it went down that day. There is, however, a painting that I love, and you can Google it. It's by an artist named Henry Tanner, and it's called The Annunciation, and it's hanging in the Philadelphia Museum of Art. In that picture, there's no angel. There's just this big, bright light in the foreground. And there's a young girl on a disheveled bed looking at the light. And the look on her face is one of being dumbfounded and stunned and scared. It's a look that says, "Are you kidding me? Really? How can this be? How can this happen? I am poor. I'm young. I'm not married. How can this happen?" Now, many of us in our lives have had Mary moments where our lives were interrupted by announcements that left us dumbfounded. I want a divorce. Mom is terminally ill. You're fired. And like Mary, we thought maybe this is more than I can bear. And as I thought about it, I thought, Mary is told by the angel she will bear a son. We think of, can I bear this? It's the same word. And I often think of the words scared and sacred are so close to one another. You just switch those two letters. But oftentimes when we're in that scared moment, it's that we're at the cusp of something really, really sacred. Now Mary, after her confusion and doubt and fear and worry, ultimately, we don't know how long it took, but ultimately she decided, God, I'm yours. Do with me what you will. And she rejoices in that, and she says yes. Now, of course, in our lives, many of us have also heard the messenger of God come to us. That is our inner voice. And that inner voice also gives us announcements. And it says, write that book. Ask so-and-so out to coffee. Take that yoga class. Go back to school and get your degree. And we can take that announcement and we can ignore it. But it's never in our best interests to say no to that angelic message and invitation. Now, I am very blessed this morning that one of my spiritual teachers is here today, Mark Anthony Lord. And I attended a retreat in Kansas City a few years back that Mark facilitated. And at the end of that retreat, I received what I believed was an annunciation, an announcement, and it came courtesy of Mark Anthony. The last 5 words that he spoke were, you will do amazing things. And at that time, it was like that light that Mary saw. And I thought, how can this be? I'm a middle-aged B&B owner. What amazing things could God possibly have for me? And yet, like Mary, I said yes. Take me where you want me to go. And I didn't know where it would lead. I certainly did not picture that I'd be wearing a collar and pastoring a Christian church. Like in this gospel, what God did with Mary and what God did with her relative, Elizabeth, God works in such surprising ways. But look, amazing things. Amazing things. This is what we are called to do this time of year, is to say yes to wherever God is leading us, to birth that light into the world. And it struck me as I was working on this homily this week that this is exactly 9 months since I've been your pastor. 9 months. We have indeed birthed in those 9 months something beautiful into the world. And that's what Christmas is all about. Christmas, believe it or not, is not really about Jesus. Although we hear Jesus is the reason for the season, it's really about the Christ. When we say keep Christ in Christmas, I like that. Like Richard Rohr said in our words of integration that John so beautifully read for us, Christ is not Jesus' last name. Christ existed before Jesus. Christ is that love, that creative love and energy that God infused into the world, into all of us. Jesus was able to make it manifest. And so can you. Remember, he said, all of the things that I have done, you can do. These and greater. I read a quote from Meister Eckhart this week. He was the 14th century Christian mystic. And when I read them, I cried. He wrote this in the 14th century. We are all meant to be mothers of God. What good is it to me if the eternal birth of the divine Son takes place unceasingly, but doesn't take place within me. And what good is it to me if Mary is full of grace, if I am not also full of grace? And what good is it for me, for the Creator to give birth to his Son, if I do not also give birth to him in my time and my culture? Then is the fullness of time when the Son of God is birthed in us. We're all called to be mothers of God. We're all called to birth that into the world. That's the power of Christmas. That's why we love Christmas so much, because every year we get to recommit to that spiritual pregnancy, to birthing that light into the world. Now, I know oftentimes we think, how is this possible? How can I do this? How can I bring God into the world? And like Mary, we may think, I'm too young for this to happen. Or like Elizabeth, I'm too old to birth this. But we hear from the angel, nothing is impossible. As long as you're breathing, you have the power to be birthing. And I call the name of this homily, I'm Possible, because I want us to shift when we say something's impossible, to remembering that that word is really I'm possible. I spoke with you a few months ago about the power of the I am. I am possible. All things are possible. And so, on this last Sunday of Advent, as we prepare for Christmas, let's go forward and prepare ourselves to bring forth, to birth the light of the world. And let's remember, we will do amazing things. Namaste.
Namaste.